Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Eye on the Ball. I'm Steve Rivera alongside Jay Gonzalez, and you're listening to 1030 The Voice. Welcome to Friday. Does it feel like these weeks are going faster or slower, Jay?
I think they're going faster. I think part of it is because we're speeding towards the seasons starting, and I think we all want to see what's going to happen.
And we were doing it real fast, and then they stopped us. It was a screeching to a halt type of thing. But let's talk about screeching to a halt. What's going on in the SEC?
Well, the stuff already starting to happen. News today that, first of all, Vanderbilt has paused their practices because they've had some positive COVID tests.
And they're part of the SEC. Okay.
Shocker. And then
Alabama?
And on campus at Alabama, it was reported that in testing, there's been a 29% positivity rate, and they've put down some very strict rules about things, on campus stuff going on for their students, and saying, in the frat houses, fraternity and sorority houses, nobody goes into those houses except, students and staff, no parties. It says meals will be a grab and go for residents and members. Social distancing, gatherings are prohibited in the house. A 14-day moratorium on all in-person student events outside of classrooms. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't include practices, so they can still practice.
And there was a third. Then there was a third, not the SEC, but I think it was the ACC.
And then over in North Carolina, University of North Carolina, which said, we're going to all online classes. There was a report of more than 100 positive or 100 cases of coronavirus in a single dorm.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that the Pac-12 and the Big Ten has said is unavoidable, and that's why they canceled their season.
Let me ask you, just as you were talking about Alabama, do you think, and I'm going to say they're the head of the snake, I could be wrong, but they're the head of the SEC.
Right.
If they fail, does everybody else fail?
Oh, 100%. The reason this is still going forward is because of the SEC.
That's why I asked the question.
Because, look, for eons, for ages, the Big Ten and the Pac-12 have been aligned, because of the Rose Bowl and all that kind of stuff. As the conferences, they've been aligned, also because they're very much aligned academically, which we've talked about. Clearly, the SEC in that part of the country, they're running the show. The SEC is, whatever the SEC says goes. And the ACC has always been aligned with that. And the Big 12, who's kind of like, we don't know who to hitch our wagon to, they've hitched their wagon to the SEC. And so if the SEC fails at this, if all of a sudden they say we can't have a season, it's all over.
But the head of the SEC, being Alabama, if Alabama fails, the SEC
it all
fails.
goes under.
Yeah, okay.
It all goes under.
Yeah.
Greg Sankey, who's the commissioner of the SEC, you can tell he doesn't seem certain that they're going to play. He's been very cautious.
Has he wavered? Has he been wavering?
He's cautious in what he says. He keeps saying, he's one of those guys that keeps saying, we're heading towards a season. We expect to start our season, that kind of stuff. So, if they keep having trouble like this now, if Tennessee, if some of these other places start having trouble, how do you play?
Right.
And how do you play football if the SEC doesn't play football?
You don't. You just don't. We'll know more and more as we get closer. We talk about this every day. Sorry to say that.
We do.
But okay, so local, we got some numbers. Not too bad. I don't want to say they're great, but they're not too bad.
Well, again, we've said all along that, look, the football programs or the athletic programs are doing, for the most part, a really good job, including the U of A, in terms of, the number of cases and keeping their players, isolated, and so that they can have, these workouts and stuff like that. The big unknown was students on campus, and these students are starting to arrive on campus, and they're already having problems. So the U of A today sent out a news release that they've had 200 and something tests. Let me look it up here. They've tested 169 athletes and 86 staff members, and have had a total of 5 positive tests. That's a good number.
One being a staff member.
One staff member and five athletes. That's a really good number. And the U of A across the board, campus wide and whatnot, is seen as one of the leaders in this, as a campus that's done as good a job as you can expect. That's great. But the students aren't on campus yet.
Well, no question. This weekend is going to be a huge weekend.
Right. I stopped at Target yesterday. Had to go get some golf balls.
Target,
right?
Where at?
At Alcon.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And I didn't really see it as I walked in because I kind of went towards the back of the store because I had to stop in electronics, and then I went to get some golf balls. And then I was heading towards the register to pay for my golf balls. And I was walking through the home area, and it was flooded with students getting stuff for their dorms and stuff.
Right.
It was a massive amount of people. Everybody had masks on. It was all great. Sure. And, you're just trying to keep away from people. Then I went to get in line to pay for my golf balls, and the line was so long that it was coming away from the register and snaking through the cosmetics area. And then somebody directing traffic. I just put the golf balls down and left. But the point being, there were hundreds of students in there getting their stuff for their dorms. And I thought,
how is this going to work?
How is this going? Exactly. Yeah. I thought, how is this going to work? All these people in one place, and we're not even on campus. Right. How is that going to work in the dorms and stuff?
Right.
We moved my daughter into one of the downtown apartment complex, the Cadence downtown, and move-in day. There were people lining up at the elevator, and one group at a time was getting on the elevator. Everybody had masks and stuff, but I thought, all these people are going to be interacting with each other, and how many of them are going to continue to wear masks? Are they going to be gathering across the street at Hi-Fi or the other bars and restaurants downtown? What is this going to look like when the ball really gets going for classes and parties and socializing and all that stuff? And I looked around and I thought, this is why the Pac-12 and the Big Ten canceled sports.
And it's way early into the situation.
Again, they don't start classes till Monday.
Right. Well, this weekend, like I said, I'm waiting for the first videos of what's going to happen this weekend.
Right. All the big parties, if they're going to be having parties off campus or even anywhere around campus, they're going to start tonight.
Tonight, yep. And then tomorrow, and then get ready for school on Sunday.
Tonight.
With the last minute party. You know how it was back in 1945?
Right. Again, as we talked about, everybody thinks they're invincible, and they're not.
Right. So let's take a quick break here. We're going to talk to TJ Juskiewicz, the executive director of the El Tour de Tucson, who made a big announcement yesterday.
Yeah, big announcement. They're postponing until April.
We'll talk about that, too, because you were affected by something. The Roadrunners were affected by something. Right. I mean, this is not a shock.
It's not a shock. They're doing it for all the right reasons.
Hey, welcome back to Eye on the Ball here on 1030 The Voice. I'm Steve Rivera alongside Jay Gonzalez. And now on the phone we have the executive director of the El Tour de Tucson, TJ Juskiewicz. TJ, how are you?
Doing great, Steve. How you doing?
Good to have you back on the show. Hey, big announcement yesterday. What was the thinking?
Well, it's a heartbreaking decision anytime you have to postpone an event like that. But we just felt it was the right decision, just knowing that the safety of the riders and people in this community are more important than putting on a bike race. And so we made the decision to postpone it to April 10th, and really looking forward to having that event in the springtime.
TJ, this is Jay Gonzalez. I missed you the last time you were on the show. I was gallivanting across the state, headed towards Pine Top. But in terms of exactly, what were the concerns you guys had regarding exposure, and what led to the decision?
Sure. Well, we were looking at every possible way to do mitigation, spreading riders out, when they bunch up as far as, the ride start, the ride finish, bathrooms, all those kinds of things. And when we started looking at the numbers that were going to be allowed to gather, we're still going to be well over any kind of threshold that would be able to get permitting. And there comes a time where we have to lock in things like insurance and permits and all those types of things. And without certainty on those things, it just became obvious that the numbers weren't going to move fast enough, that we're going to all of a sudden have, instead of 50 people being able to gather, we're all of a sudden going to go to 5,000 people able to gather. So obviously when the Pac-12 kind of folded up their tent for football, that was kind of a big a big blow, and just kind of the mood kind of let out just a collective sigh of, wow, is 2020 just about done? And so just after that, we decided that it was time for us to start looking at things that we can do it the right way. And we also wanted to make sure if people come from all over the world, we want them to experience Tucson in all of its glory, not going into a restaurant that you can't sit down at, not doing those types of things that make our community great. So we wanted to make sure that people would have a safe opportunity to come here and have a really great time while they're here.
By pushing it back 5 months, what's next? Because you get some time to kind of reevaluate and kind of refocus.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a different type of mood in the springtime. Obviously, there's different people in our community as well that come here for the winter and the spring. So it might be a little bit different in that regard, but it does give us a time to hopefully get over this cloud of COVID, and hopefully our country is going to be in a little better shape by that point. The weather is pretty comparable to what November is, maybe even a little bit better. But the fact is, it's an unknown of what the springtime will be for an El Tour. But I think people are pretty excited about it in general, which is a good thing.
One of the things, Jay was the president of the Sugar Skull. So if misery loves company, you have company, because he knows exactly what you're going through, right, Jay?
Exactly, and I mean, the decisions are hard, and you hope for the best, but at some point you got to say, we just got to do the right thing.
Yeah, I don't think anyone wants to cancel. I mean, I think back to the day. I heard that the Final Four, was not going to go forward, and it just took my breath away that this thing is for real. I never dreamed we'd be, here in August and still dealing with it at the same level. I mean, I don't think anyone could possibly fathom that it was going to be like that. So then we finally got to the point where, hey, we're about 90 days out. There's people that need to book. I'm getting calls from people in Canada saying, hey, I'm not even allowed to come into the country, or I can't travel without spending 14 days in quarantine if I go to Arizona. So those are legitimate concerns. And, obviously people here are saddened. It's a great economic impact to the community. It's a great fundraiser for a lot of great nonprofits, but all in all that doesn't add up to, someone that's not, being going back to their hometown healthy and safe. And so safety overrides any other concern.
I think one of the big things is it's not a stop, it's a delay, which is a big deal, because in 5 months you'll have a new ride or whatever, and then they'll be able to ride 2 in a year. That's
right. And I think a lot of people are just excited. It's a kind of an unprecedented type of thing. Obviously, 2020 is unprecedented in everyone's mind. So let's give them a little bonus in 2021. Give them 2 El Tours, and hopefully people will understand that, hey, there's nothing we can really do about it for this year, but we're going to make it up to you in 2021.
So how did you land on the date that you landed on? What went into that? What were you looking at besides weather and that type of stuff? Well, I'm sure you were looking at weather, but what kinds of things were you looking at for that particular weekend?
Sure. Well, good question. There's a lot on the, springtime in Tucson. If you look at the calendar, how many different things you got on that? You've got things like, the Gem Show, and you've got rodeo, and you've got
the book
festival of books, and things that traditional events you really don't want to go head to head with. Golf tournament up in up at Tucson National. The Cats are going to be in the Final Four, right? And that's going to be April 3 to 5.
Well,
you don't want to be during that.
You've got basketball, which may go into May, and you've got football, which may be at that time next year as well.
So you just don't know some of those unknowns of what's going to be rescheduled for the spring. But what we did know was the traditional spring events in Tucson, southern Arizona, trying to find a date. Obviously, you don't want to be on Easter, so we kind of settled on that April 10th date. It just seemed like a good date on the calendar, that it wasn't things like that were already in Armory Park or in downtown. There's things like the Street Fest on 4th and St. Patrick's Day Parade. There's so many different things that are already packed into the downtown calendar and, just the southern Arizona calendar. And then on top of that, checking with the bike calendar to make sure there's no other major events. So I think it's probably easier to reschedule a football season than probably pick a date for El Tour in a crowded Tucson calendar.
So when you made the announcement, I think the organizations are always weary of pissing off some people on this side or that side. But I think overwhelmingly, a lot of people liked the decision.
I thought pretty well. It's you're not going to keep everyone happy. There's no doubt. We got a couple of people that screamed at us, and I understand. They wanted to ride, and they didn't think we should cancel. I get it. But most people, looking at it reasonably, they completely understood. And, are we err on the side of caution? Sure. But you know what? We'll look back at this and just say, you know what? It is the right decision. I feel pretty confident about that, and we're going to move forward and have a great event in the springtime, and then get back on that traditional calendar on the November date in 2021.
If you don't mind, I'm going to get away from bicycling and talk about something you dearly love, SEC football. We were talking about this before. You're from Florida. You're one of those crazy kooks from the SEC. Are they going to play football in the SEC?
I think they're going to try. September 26th is, just a little bit over a month away. And, if they play football, it's going to send shockwaves to the rest of the country because, I'm a big SEC fan, and, people really don't like the SEC outside the SEC. They're really not going to like the SEC after they're playing football, and you're sitting there watching the SEC on football.
They'll hate them even more now.
Oh, yeah, you thought you hate Alabama before. Just wait till that's all you see, So, and then especially when you're like, wow, we play that same game and we're not playing, and they're playing in the SEC. So, it's going to be interesting because I think probably a lot of players are going to say, well, maybe I want to go, down there where they're playing football instead of watching football. So I hope the rest of the country gets back on track. I do hope the SEC plays. I mean, because I don't know what I can do in my fall days without SEC football and without college football, because I just absolutely love college football.
Well, I think over here from where we sit, I fully believe they're going to start football too. The question is, how long will they be able to go? That's where I think is the issue. I think all three. Well, unless all hell breaks loose on their campuses, I think they're going to get started. But it's going to be a question of how long can they go before they might have to kill it. That's the worry.
Well, you look how good baseball is doing, right? Like they play every game on schedule. Well, maybe not.
No, they've missed a whole bunch.
That's the whole thing. Maybe not.
So, but on the other side, basketball's done well. It's a complete different, It's apples and oranges. But hopefully they learned a lot from baseball of what how bad they've handled this situation, and like half the games of some teams have been canceled.
Yeah.
But there's people in the South though. If you take away their football at LSU or Georgia or Florida, those are fighting words.
They'll lose their minds.
Oh my gosh, it's a religion down there, and I'm not saying that word lightly, but it is a religion in the South, football.
Well, it's funny because you came from Iowa, and Iowa won't be playing, but Iowa State will.
Exactly. I know Iowa was one of the schools that voted to play. I think it was them and maybe Nebraska. And so, when their cross-state rivals are playing, that is going to be tough to.
That's even tough.
Really tough. And again, it'd be kind of like if say Arizona State was in a different conference than they were playing, you guys wouldn't like that too much, would you?
No comment.
Of course not.
No, absolutely. No, I was just thinking that. I mean, that would be awful. So
I have no dog in the fight, but Jay does.
100%.
Hey, TJ, thanks for joining us. We'll probably have you on soon. Thank you.
All right, anytime, guys.
Hey, good luck. Good luck with the event, TJ, and I'm sure we'll talk again as it rolls around.
All right, thanks, guys.
Take care. Hey, let's take a quick break here on 10:30 The Voice. Come back on the other side. Hey, welcome back to Eye on the Ball here on 1030 The Voice. I'm Steve Rivera alongside co-host Jay Gonzalez. So we're noticing one thing, Jay, and I'm sure it's not a shock to you. Players are leaving U of A and almost on the daily.
Well, it's these guys who are in position as grad transfers because they can go anywhere they want. They can play
right away.
It's not surprising. And I don't know how many more of those are out there. The question is, timing wise. I mean, these team seasons are, they're starting to get in camps. They're starting to practice. I mean, what's going on? But another one's been announced. A guy named John Jacobs, a lineman who played in 11 games last year. Started a game, and he's a he's graduated, so he can go wherever he wants. He's going to Charlotte.
And like you said, I think maybe a day or two ago when the schoolers decided to leave as well, you don't blame someone because it's the kid's decision to leave to go play.
Right.
That we know of.
Right. For the most part, yeah.
I agree with you. And two, it's just opportunity, and you have every right to make that decision.
Look, if you're an athlete who's looking at this is my last year to play, I'm a senior, I'm not going to be in the NFL, and I'm not going to sit around and wait till maybe there's a spring season. Mm-hmm. They're rolling the dice and saying, if this school's going to play, then I'm going to go there. So I don't have any problems with any of that because, again, everybody's athletic career only lasts so long.
Sure.
And not everybody's not everybody goes to the NFL and stuff like that. So they, I get it. This lineman who's leaving, he's leaving because he's going to be closer to home.
And he's going to
Charlotte.
Yeah.
So it's a school that's it's a smaller school than Arizona. Maybe he has more opportunity to play there. He's played a bunch at Arizona, but he's not been a regular starter. Maybe he goes there and they need a lineman. Mm-hmm. I just hope these guys have done their homework. You'd hate for them to make a move like that and then get there and they're in a worse situation than they were here.
Well, I think we talked about this a day or two ago, like I said, where, okay, they're leaving. It's almost the school has to find an opening for them, scholarship-wise.
Exactly, because that's the thing. I heard a quote from a coach asking, are we going to, it was right after the Pac-12 and the Big Ten postponed their seasons, and somebody asked, is there going to be an exodus of players from all those schools? And they said, where are they going to go? We've got, our scholarships are full. We can't, they can't come here on scholarship. We've got guys, who are set to play. It's not like we have all these openings. There's not a ton of job openings out there. So, you hope that the schooler boys land somewhere where they do have an opportunity. Who knows where that's going to be? We tried to find out, right?
Right. So I tried to talk to his dad today. We actually tweeted at one of another. He said he did not want to come on the show. He was very gracious, but said no. So let me say this: when you're talking about talking about the coaches saying we don't have spots for you or we don't have a placement for you, publicly,
right?
Publicly, privately, they may think, come on, we can figure this out.
Well, sure, and it's. I guess if a player contacts a coach can tell him whatever he wants.
Right.
But you just hope that the player has really done his homework so that if a coach says you're going to have an opportunity here, that he's really going to have that opportunity.
Well, we all know about recruiting.
We know that, how many coaches tell the guys, oh, yeah, you'll start.
You'll play. You'll play.
And then they get here and they find out there's 3 other guys that they've told we're going to start at their position. So who knows?
Right.
But, boy, again, we've said it a million times. This is just a really weird time that you're seeing some of this stuff. Now, I think what we're seeing is the guys who are leaving are guys who are leaving because it's their last year at Arizona.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And so they they can go. You hope a freshman or a sophomore doesn't transfer to go to another place because they're playing this year, and then they get there and something happens there. And they can't come back, right. That kind of thing.
Let me say this, too, because the NCAA just today decided that they're going to give the scholarship availability this semester, right?
You don't lose a year. Nobody's losing a year of eligibility this year.
That said, we saw what happened in the spring, how much money it's going to cost the school with them giving that scholarship back. Another semester of that?
Right.
More money being spent.
Well, who are the ones that can be most affected? The seniors in high school.
Exactly.
There's going to be a lot fewer places for them to go because now all of a sudden a school's got to honor the scholarships of the seniors who would have been gone but now are not going to be gone. And, how many of them are going to stay? How many of them you're going to continue to pay for? And if you have these guys, how many scholarships are you going to give out?
Right.
New scholarships. Not everybody's got the money to do that.
Don't you think that the NCAA or the schools are going to have to expand their rosters and the availability of scholarships?
That's the next thing. So if you're going to allow everybody to have another year of eligibility, how many scholarship athletes are you going to allow them to have to accommodate that?
That's to be determined.
That's to be determined. That's the next thing that's got to be figured out.
This is like the dominoes and everything continue to fall in a negative way because the schools don't have money. U of A is going to be cash strapped for the next few years because of this.
Right.
Well, everybody is.
We've heard the numbers. If Arizona doesn't play football, they're $65 million in the hole.
Right.
Where are they going to get the money to honor a bunch of scholarships that they weren't planning on honoring? And then how many additional players are you going to bring in? I mean, there's not money, all over the place waiting to be spent on this.
You know why I'm playing the lottery? It's the same thing in my life.
Rolling the dice, man. Rolling the dice.
No, it's a tough situation. We've talked to Hiki a number of times, and he's talked about the difficulties that's going on. And it's not going to get any better, that's for sure.
It's, again, the impact of this is going to stretch for years. Both from a money standpoint, an eligibility standpoint, a lot of these rules that they're making to account for the different things that are happening because of this.
Right.
How many of those rules will stay in place? My favorite is, with all these conferences playing 10 games in their league, are they going to is the SEC going to back it down to 8 games again, which is what it was? Or are they going to say, okay, we played our 10, let's play 9 from now on? Because I will forever believe that the reason the SEC is always in the playoff and winning out championships. I get it; they've got really good teams, but they get a free game every year that they're not going to lose. That a Pac-12 team does lose because they play the extra conference game. So that's why there's never an undefeated team coming out of the Pac-12, and there is because in the SEC because they have a freebie that everybody else doesn't have. That
makes sense. I won't disagree with you. It's not a fair
you can
landscape.
if you want.
No, but I agree with you. I will when I can, but I won't there because I agree with you. The landscape is not.
Yeah,
it's not equal.
The playing field is not equal, and hasn't been for a very long time. But again, the point being that there's all these rules and changes being made to deal with the COVID issues. How much of that is going to stick? That's what I'm curious about. How much of that is going to stick? Yeah.
Well, it's going to be okay. School starts Monday. It's kind of the city's kind of getting already kind of a little populated with the kids, like you said, at the stores and stuff. It's going to be boring because we're not going to go to events,
right?
But we're just going to be talking about not events but situations.
Sure. I just ran across a quote that I missed, and good old John Wilner, who's always Johnny on the spot, right, for stuff. And apparently Bob Bowlesby, the Big 12 commissioner, did an interview with I guess it was some sort of a podcast out of the Big 12, and John posted a quote from the podcast from Bowlesby that said, quote, "We're a long ways from playing football."
Oh yeah, that's great. Well, that's not great, but that's kind of.
But again, that's the caution that you're really hearing. And again, these guys are waiting for students to get on campus and that kind of stuff. And I think we are a long ways from playing football. And these next probably 1 or 2 weeks are going to let us know if the football season really is going to start mid to late September.
Not to be a Debbie Downer on this or whatever I would be called. Buckmaster talked about the coronavirus numbers being down in this town and it's in the city. Well, then guess what's happening? We talked about it. School starting.
Right, school's starting. All schools are starting.
Yeah.
And
good luck with that.
Again, it's just I feel like it's going to be if this last wave was the second wave, you almost feel like a third one is on the way.
True. If that's the case, then no question.
So I don't know, but and again, we're focused on the sports piece of it, which in the grand scheme of things isn't the most important thing going on out there. You worry about these kindergartners and sixth graders and high school students, who are going to class and, what's going to happen. And, there's so many people out there who say, well, kids can get it and it's not a big deal. Yes, it is. Yeah. Anybody who gets it is a big deal.
Sure.
And if you've known somebody who's gotten it, it's a big deal. And the people who are saying that are people who don't know anybody who's gotten it.
It doesn't affect you until it affects you.
Exactly. Yeah. Until it affects you.
Right. Let's take a break here and maybe get a call or two, 790-2040, and the other side. Thanks.
All right. We'll be back.
Hey, welcome back to Eye on the Ball here on 1030 The Voice. I'm Steve Rivera alongside co-host Jay Gonzalez. I wanted to say something real quick, Jay, because I know you follow you had some connection to high school stuff, but the Saguaro basketball standout Alyssa Brown is headed to UNLV, which is a big deal.
Right. She's been a great player here at my alma mater, so, she's a Cougar. But, yeah, good for her. A lot of people asking, why she didn't, she's not going to the U of A or was she recruited or whatever, but, I think one thing that none of us understand unless we've gone through it is the whole recruiting process and how that works and what kids see, what the opportunities are, what coaches talk about when they're sitting in their living room. Was the U of A interested in her? We don't know. Maybe, her position is crowded and that, she's not a position of need for whatever. But, anytime you see a great athlete out of Tucson go somewhere else, you wonder, Nick Gonzalez, right? Baseball player who nobody recruited, wound up in New Mexico State, ended up being, the number 5 pick, Major League draft. The kid that went to Alabama.
Yes.
Levi Wallace. Another kid that, walked on. Right now, I'm just gonna say to everybody, you got to understand. We've got a couple old guys here that can't remember stuff.
No, but you got them.
We lose names. I pulled it out. It took a little bit, but when you see kids like that wind up, and you say, "What happened?"
Yeah. Well, I think that we've talked about this because John Bijan, some of the others, the Finas, and those guys, you can totally understand if the big boys are calling you. Guess what? You're going to probably listen.
You're going to listen. And, we've already seen some stuff coming out of practices at Texas, and Bijan apparently is the real deal over there. Yeah. So, for anybody who thinks that he was going to turn down Texas or Ohio State or any other school that had a chance at him, he was not, because he believes he's the real deal. And I mentioned before, I spoke to a high school player who played against him and asked, is he Tucson good or is he the real deal? And he just nodded his head, said he's the real deal. He's the guy.
And those guys don't come around very often.
Right, they don't, and and unfortunately, they don't go to Arizona because they have what they think are bigger opportunities in places.
The one guy that did stay was the last guy. I think was Kadeem, obviously.
Right,
and he had a nice career.
And he had a great career, and got into the NFL for a little bit. Had a cup of coffee there, but you just don't know.
Did you see that the Canadian Football League, I think, has canceled their season?
No,
I think so. I could be wrong because he's in it. He was playing.
Steve, what are we going to gamble on?
Gamble that we complete a show. We were going to talk about Terry Francona.
Yeah, some not good news coming out of Major League Baseball. Terry Francona, who's undergoing some medical procedures. He's had some gastrointestinal problems that it sounds like he's had a number of surgeries for. He's missed 14 games this season. He's going to miss some more games this weekend. You hope it's something that can be fixed. I mean, he's 61 years old. He's my age, so
he's not very old. You guys aren't old.
If you've got some health issues, when you get to be that age, it's a little harder to deal with than if you're some young 30-year-old buck. So,
do you even remember when that was a 30-year-old? Do you remember those days? Pre-kids, right? Pre-kids.
Yeah. I had my first kid. How old was I? Adam was born in '93, so I was going on 34.
So you're talking about your memory losses, and let me say this, and I mean this with all good intentions. So I had a great memory before kids. When you have kids, you start calling them the same name and blah blah blah, and you start forgetting. Right. It's kids that make you forget stuff.
I think it must be because it just you're so focused on all that stuff, and then especially now, my kids. My last one just moved out.
You have 4, right?
3.
3.
She just moved out, and it's kind of like I walk around the house and I'm like, it's weird.
It's empty?
Yeah, and not empty, but then I walk into a room intending to do something.
Oh, that happens all the time.
And then I forgot what I went
That
in
happens
there.
all the time. No, so you have to back out. You have to back out and say, "What was I here for?" Then you got to go through again. No, it's true, isn't it true?
You do.
Because I do the
yeah,
same thing.
I retrace my steps to try and figure out where I was going. But getting to the point about Terry Francona, you just really.
No, the point was.
I'm sorry. You just really hope that that his health improves and that this isn't something that is debilitating for him. Look, he's our friend. Anytime anybody who comes on our show is automatically our friend.
Sure.
They're stuck with that for the rest of their lives. And Terry came on our show, and
We had a lot. He was on the road when he was.
he was headed back to Cleveland, to get the season started, and you wish him all the best. So I hope I hope things are okay with him.
Right. We have about 7 minutes. Anybody wants to call in, please do. The bubble. You've been watching a little NBA.
Yeah, I watched some NBA. The last couple of days, and it's it's interesting.
You're sick.
I'm watching
What
whatever
else?
I can.
What else is there?
There's nothing else. I'm watching a lot of baseball. I'm watching way more
Really?
baseball than I've ever watched.
Really?
I'm actually putting. I've got the MLB package so that I can watch games on on my phone and my iPad and stuff. I mean, on the way home from the show every day, I put a game on and listen to a game. I just love listening to baseball games. I'm one of those people that like if I had to drive somewhere, and this was back in the day when you had AM radio, right? I'd look for a baseball game because I felt like 3 hours or 2.5 hours of a baseball game would make that 2.5 to 3 hours go so fast on a drive.
Oh,
so
really?
I'm that guy. And
Wow.
it doesn't even have to be a game that I'm interested in, just any game.
Yeah. No, I couldn't do that. I just play music and say, "Who cares?" in the bottom of the fifth. Yeah.
No, I do. I'll listen to a football game, a basketball game, whatever. And it's kind of the same right now. When I'm working in my home office and I've got a TV right there, whatever sport is on, whether Thursdays and Fridays, it's golf. Jesus, I was watching women's golf this morning at 9:00 this morning.
You got a problem.
Those poor ladies were freezing. They're playing in a tournament in Scotland, one of those at Royal Troon in Scotland, one of those golf courses that's right next to the water, and they were bundled up. The wind, it was 35 mile an hour winds. Some of these players were wearing down vests and stuff like that. And great players were shooting 8 or 9 over. I saw one player take an 8 on a par 4. I raised my hand. I said, I can do that.
And you've done that.
I did it today.
So Gabriel, lo siento. He's watching all kinds.
There's
of sports.
always sports on in the house anymore.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to have sports.
Yeah. No, because back in June, remember July, I think we were saying, are we ever going to see this
There's
stuff?
nothing, man. It was soap operas, right? I was watching those Dateline and 48 Hours murder shows and
I'm
stuff
still watching
over
those.
and over
I'm
and
still
over
watching
again.
those.
Repeats. I know them by first name now.
Yes, I watch those all the time.
Yeah.
And it's because they don't take their meds, everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? And it's always the wife putting the antifreeze in the husband's Gatorade.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Gatorades are not allowed in our house anymore. At least not the yellow Gatorade.
Oh, because of that?
Because of that. If I ever see yellow
I'm writing
Gatorade,
that down.
if I ever see yellow Gatorade in our refrigerator,
I'm writing that
I'm looking
down.
around. So, but look, I'm glad that some sports are back. And I'm watching whatever there is to watch, and that's great. And college football I think is going to start. I really hope that they get going with it, but
when's
I'm just disappointed. Don't think it's going to happen.
When's the official September 26th?
Well, there's some games scheduled for the weekend of September 5th. You've got a handful of games. The first weekend, September 5th, and then the following weekend, September 10th through that next weekend, the NFL starts and the Big 12 starts. I think the ACC starts. The SEC starts at the end of September 26th, at the end of September.
I was going to say, didn't we talk about, I think I brought it up with the Army. Army wants to play. They're still playing.
Right.
I think they're in their first week.
Every day you hear if somebody else has scheduled another game and stuff like that, But some of those directional schools and stuff like that are going to be playing college football as early as September 5th.
In fact, I saw Appalachian State has halted their football season for now. Maybe just for a day or two, and they're like one of those monster beaters.
Right?
They beat those teams.
Right. They beat Michigan.
And all.
They beat Michigan that one year and stuff like that. So again, just kind of hold your breath and let's see what happens. Hope for the best because you just don't know, how it's going to work.
Crazy times. I don't think. Well, it can only get better, right?
Well, you hope. And again, look, What worries me is that if these guys start college football and then have to stop, kind of ruins everything.
How so?
In that their seasons end, and now there's maybe no chance for everybody to play in the spring. You know, let's say they go 3, 4, 5 games into it.
Okay.
And then it all collapses.
I get it, because if, let's say 3, 4 games get you to maybe early November or late October, something breaks, because otherwise so then
it all gets canceled.
That makes sense.
Now you don't finish this season. Those teams, they're not going to be able to regroup and play in the spring. Now what happens?
Well, no, you make a great point. Now you're hoping that if they start, that they don't stop.
Right. Exactly. But that's going to make the Big 12 and the Pac-12 and the Big 10.
You have no horse in this.
Look bad, so bad.
Yeah.
But again, you just worry that, and honestly, the thing that I worry about is that they're going to press to play that they're really going to put more at risk than they should be.
I think that's the bottom issue, or the bottom line issue.
I think they're going to be risking a lot, and I'm really afraid that they're not going to be looking out for the welfare of these players to kind of keep it going, because the momentum got going and they couldn't stop the momentum.
And you know how politics are in this situation, and I think that's a big part of it.
It's a huge part of
politics and money.
I mean, Alabama fans will lose their minds if all of a sudden there's
what's
no
going to happen
football.
in the South if nothing happens?
They're going to I don't know. I don't want to be a police officer down there. I'll tell you that.
You're good.
I don't want to be in law enforcement if
it's gonna be crazy,
if football dies in the South this fall.
It's gonna be crazy. Okay. Hey, good show today.
Good show. We'll be back on Monday, and hopefully, the air will start to clear about stuff. We'll start hearing about stuff going on the campus.
Don't go to a party this weekend.
I'm not. I won't go to a party. And my daughter Rachel, who's out there, you better not go to a party either.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll see you on Monday.